Web C, the Model Rocketeer, and Bit Cloudwize. All right, thank you guys for coming in, hanging out, and doing everything like that, having a fun time, good time, all times. And tonight we're going to be watching Hellier, episode 2, season 2, and we're in. The Model Rocketeer was going to invite somebody in to hang out with us tonight. We're just checking to see if he's going to pop in here real quick.
Yep.
I got some
I don't
noise.
think we're gonna get it.
Okay,
We're good.
we're
Might
just
as
going to
well.
go ahead and let's roll on Hellier. All right, and then I'm going to go shut off my background noise here. I'll be right back.
So, remember what Tanny said about setting intentions? And then it goes, oh, okay, fine. It showed up in February, and I've been hanging on to it because I had a bit of a meltdown because I thought somebody who'd seen Hellier was fucking with us. What? Because this happened the day he went to North Carolina. The night before.
You literally the intention of going to
I called him up and I said, somebody fucking saw Hellier.
Listen.
Somebody fucking saw Hellier.
Start. Just give him the emails.
It's taken a dark turn.
Planet Weird presents a Stick River Productions. Original scores, Anthony Sistone. Director of Photography, Carl Pfeiffer. Associate Producer, Rashad Seisman. Co-executive Producer. I didn't even get that far. I can't read that fast. All right. Yeah. Carl Pfeiffer's got his fingers deep in this one. Directed, executive producer. Oh, man.
I just received 2 visitors carrying some devastating news. Indrid Cold, age 92, Demo Hassan, and Carl Ardo died today. I have more information. I will pass it along. Obit posted soon.
What? What the fuck? Did she ever post an obit?
She never posted an obit. And she is still online.
Right.
But this was shared on her little page for her book that she wrote. Then she says that she's writing a new book that will be out before Christmas 2018 called Indrid Cold, Man or Myth.
Connor tells us that according to Woodrow Derenberger's daughter, the last real connection to Indrid Cold, the Indrid Cold is dead. It was a shock, and I think that shock exists because if Indrid was such a vital part to this search, this journey. But what did that mean for us? What did that mean for the rest of this research? Were the synchronicities going to stop? Was the search over? Was the message that we may have been relaying to somebody else pointless? If Terry Rist was trying to contact him or send a message for him, did it all end? And that was a mystery we need to get to the bottom of.
We could go talk to her if we wanted to. She's a nice old lady, who received 2 mysterious visitors who stopped in at her home and said that they died.
I'm actually sad about that. Yeah. That seriously, that bums me out. Yeah. What is that?
We obviously have to question her story and her dad's story. But
For sure.
if there's anybody that they're going to be in contact with, that they're going to stop, it's like the military stopping in or something. Just being like, hey, it's a family friend. Like, and it's like that,
It's a local government thug.
Yeah, this guy's like, he's
That
not
was
biting the
news I
bait,
was
you know.
Right.
Uh,
Oh yeah, we're just your local, your government thugs. We're just here to, fuck shit up.
We were all sitting down together. But the
pretty much.
idea that Andrew Cold might be dead
Wow,
was a weird
that's
twist.
crazy.
It was unusual information, and to be coming.
All right, so remember from the last time we were here and watching bits a little bit out of the loop. Indrid Cold, remember, he's the guy. He's like the key to the investigation. He's not just some random alien freak dude or anything. He's a key part of the investigation. Now, who this Indrid Cold dude is he's like tied to a whole bunch of UFO cases and the Mothman prophecies. And all sorts of stuff like that. Like he's got some deeper meaning. So, welcome to the rabbit hole, everybody.
A good source.
Yeet.
Daughter of the person that allegedly met Indrid Cold. That's hard info. That's something that we can go talk to her about.
and for all of these people in the world that know about this, he's gained a mythos, a figure about him, but nobody's paying attention to her.
Yeah, that's so strange.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of sad, where it's like she and I'm a little bit
actual connection by blood to the case.
she met the man.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Right.
And they were friends. And not good friends, but they were in contact, they would check in. She said that they had very basic family friend sort of relationship. Now, she is out there, and it's like, I wonder if she's just sitting there, like, thinking that nobody's listening to her stuff. And there's all these people on, there's like Redditors claiming crazy stories or scary stories with Indrid Cold. The grinning man, he gained this mythos, and it's like, no, this is the OGs. This is the family,
Like, yeah, she's
So,
Where's her
Parkersburg. She's still in the same neighborhood, same town.
It's literally a 3.5-hour drive.
Ta-da!
We are here to talk to a man that allegedly did make contact with such an object within the Parkersburg area last evening, November the 2nd, 1966, at approximately 7:25 p.m.
Last night, shortly after 7 o'clock, I was coming from Marietta, Ohio, coming down Interstate 77. And just before I came to the intersection of Route 47, there was a car past me, overtaking me from behind. And following closely behind this car was this unidentified flying object. And as the car behind passed me, this object was following close behind it, and it swerved directly in front of my truck, turning crosswise.
Like I said, something to do with UFO, right? Like weird.
Yeah.
And this man stepped out and came directly to me, or came to the truck. He walked to the right-hand side of the truck, and he told me to roll down the window. He asked me to roll down the window on my right-hand side of my truck.
This is where he met Indrid Cold. Came up, pulled off that side of the highway. The ship parked in front of him here. He asked about the lights of the city. He approached the right-hand side of the vehicle.
he went on this side. But there was something strange about standing where I was standing because that's where Indrid was standing. Indrid came to that side of the car, stood on that side of the car, looking at the trees that were blocking out the city and seeing that glowing orange behind it. It was very strange. It felt like a meeting place. Even just the idea of like reading these stories and hearing the stories and then standing there in that spot and looking around and seeing exactly what was described.
And this man stood there and he first asked me what I was called. And he asked me, he said, why are you frightened? He said, don't be frightened, we wish you no harm. He said, we mean you no harm, we wish you only happiness. And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cold. He appeared very courteous and friendly. And after I talked with him a while, he told me he would see me. He said, we will see you again. And he left in his vehicle.
Yeah, I was a 4-year-old little girl, and I was always Daddy's girl. And I always waited up for Dad, and that night he came in, and he walked right past me, and he was white as a sheet. And Dad never walked right past me. And I mean, he walked right past me like I wasn't even there. And went into the kitchen and started talking to Mom and about his experience, and she was afraid he'd scare us, so she sent us up to our room, my brother and I. And of course I snuck back downstairs so I could hear everything. And after that, we had all kinds of people coming in the house. And then when he did his interview the next day, there ice were hundreds, literally hundreds of people. I think half Parkersburg showed up outside our yard.
I think above all else, I was really excited to talk to Tanya. And maybe that's just because we're talking to the person who has one of the last links to one of the most famous contactee cases. So the idea that we'd actually get to talk to somebody that was a tangible connection to that case was really exciting to me.
It's been a while since I've heard from Indrid. As I said yesterday, I saw Connor and Connor. They came into my room here about a month and a half ago to let me know about Indrid's wreck. Well, I had been sleeping and there was a knock on the door and they came in, and of course I was very upset when they gave me that message, and they were very upset. So we all kind of hugged each other and cried for a while, and luckily we don't have many aides on the floor at night. So it's not like anybody would have come into my room.
What were the details that you know about the accident?
The only thing that I know is that he, Demo, Hassan, and Carl Ardo were all in a ship chasing some humanoids, and they crashed into the humanoid ship, and basically kind of both ships burst into flames, and the boys didn't really. I don't think the boys were told a whole lot, even though they were older. I think as time goes by, they'll be able to open up more to me. But they were pretty upset.
Do you think they're gone?
I don't know if they're gone or if they're just. The boys think that they're gone.
Do you think they died? Did they pass away?
Yeah, I think they. The boys have me convinced that they did. So I don't know if that's just something so that he can, get out of existence for a while, or if it's true. Like I said, I'm sure the boys will open up to me more as time goes by.
What is your opinion on what happened? What do you think the truth is?
I don't know. I know for a long time, Indrid wanted to just get out of everything. So.
Do you think there might be a possibility that he and the crew faked their deaths?
There might be.
She said that Indrid and his crew had died in a ship crash. That they were chasing humanoids, and the ships collided and exploded. And she believed that that's possibly the end of Indrid Cold. Another detail that she volunteered that we didn't have to ask was the two visitors that she received in the middle of the night to give her the bad news were actually Indrid's sons, Connor and Connor.
I think it was like 3 weeks ago was the last time that Connor had actually visited her. And she told us that, they had visited her many times. And she was able to kind of give us some physical descriptions. They look like normal people that we would never necessarily know them if we happened to glance at them. One of them has dark hair. One of them has blonde hair. They're nice. They're well-rounded boys, I think, was the equivalent of what she had said at some point. So, and that they come and they visit her and they spend time with her. And they care enough about her to, that she would have been one of the first people that they would have come to tell that Indrid had passed away.
Indrid's visitation happened here. The Mothman happened here. There's tons of UFO sightings, the Flatwoods Monster, and many, many more obscure cases happen what seems to be in this tri-state area. What do you think it is about here that it seems like that draws them? What is it?
It's the Appalachian Mountains, because they can hide.
Yep.
There's a lot of places there to hide. It's, very heavily wooded. And that's what Indrid actually told me one time is that, I said, well, if you wanted to go hide, where would you go hide? And that's what he told me. He said, I'd go to the mountains.
Right, Jim? If he vaulted, Jim knows. Oh, yeah.
Indrid, he may have passed away, he may be in hiding, but to him or even his sons that have taken over, how do we do that? What would be the best way?
Through me. Because with the holidays coming, I believe they'll be by.
Do you find that they stop by, are there specific holidays that they come by, or is it every holiday?
They came by last year when I was in a nursing home in Northeast Ohio. Christmas, my birthday, Mother's Day.
Oh, even Mother's Day?
Mother's Day, yeah.
Oh. If it's the best way to give them a message, would you mind delivering a message to Indrid's sons for us?
And so Greg and I were left with one of the coolest and oddest tasks that we've ever had in our lives. And Greg and I, as everybody's leaving the room, we have a little piece of paper in which we need to write down a message to the aliens.
To the aliens.
And we had to sit and think about what we wanted to say to them in hopefully a way that they would understand that if this is actually happening, we have to accept that this could actually be happening. The Colds family could be visiting Tanya, and if they see this, we wanted to say the right thing.
If I could only have asked Tanya one question, it would have been, how do we contact the Cold family? That probably would have been what I'd go with, because it seemed to be the most relevant to the case. As the name Indrid kept coming up, with the idea that Indrid might be gone, maybe training new people to take over whatever his mission was. Still, even now, how do we contact the Cold family? Or how do we get contacted by the Cold family? That's the big question.
Do you think that Connor and Connor are real?
I don't know what to think about anyone anymore. I almost feel like I've had to separate my brain into sections.
I don't know what to think anymore.
A B test for reality. What is the world like if Connor and Connor are real? And what does the world look like if they were just made up? How how do we take the case either way? And I feel like that's something we've had to do constantly since the beginning of this.
Well, either way,
We
you
have to
look
sit
like a
there and
jack.
go, what does it mean for us in the case if David is real? What does it mean if he's not? What does it mean if Terry Wrist is actually out there doing this stuff? And what if this was a pseudonym for Alan Greenfield, who needed an avenue to write about something he couldn't write about normally? So I don't know. I guess that's my long way of saying I don't know if Connor and Connor are real, but I have to live in two realities.
And I think at the end of the day, what we each think individually isn't important. Because I think the contactee movement, like the experiences that these contactees have, you run around in circles forever trying to figure out if each one is lying totally or partially, or if they're being true. Like, at the end of the day, for me, it's about looking at patterns and looking at information gathered that they couldn't have known or probably didn't know. It's the bigger picture type stuff. So I think that spending too much time fretting over whether or not the details of what Tanya is saying are true or not is less important than the bigger picture.
So after we met with Tanya and we had all of that information that she dumped on us about Indrid Cold, we decided to look at the other side of Indrid Cold. It's important that we recognize that there are really different characterizations between Woodrow Derenberger's Indrid Cold and Terry Wrist's Indrid Cold. You read through both of these things, and Derenberger is saying a story that's honestly pretty pleasant. He's an innocent explorer who comes from a land much weaker than ours. We're just here to visit, and we just ran into you. You seem like a nice guy, so we're gonna, tell you some things you should tell your government and people in power. That's the basic story there. And there's the Indrid Cold that Terry Wrist apparently came into contact with, who's this secretive, almost kind of military-esque figure who's hiding out. Indrid Cold is a fugitive along with his crewmates. He's a fugitive on the run. That they created and enhanced a lot of the window area of the Mothman case as a distress signal. That there's weird things on you, and they're trying to get away, and then he's sitting here giving really coded messages to different people.
The interview in the back of Greenfield's book was all about this secret magical cipher that you could apply to these alien contactee encounters and crack this code and figure out a bigger picture of work. So I dove into the cipher myself. I tried to figure out what it was all about. It was complex without the use of a computer code. It was challenging to do by hand and to do that math for every single word or phrase that you pull out of the book. But I did learn how it works. Cipher aside, without even knowing how to work the cipher, they give all the clues that you need in the interview between Greenfield and Wrist about where he met Indrid Cold. With the internet today, that should be pretty easy to find. So I tried to crack it. Greenfield says, good stuff, what does it all mean? He says, like I said, I'm leaving out other values that I used in order to protect Mr. Cold. But from this, I began looking near the Ohio-West Virginia line, the Mothman area, for a church. 112 also yields All House of God, with a graveyard adjacent, and the dead, near the Kentucky-Ohio-West Virginia border, along U.S. Highway 52, near a location where Mothman had literally been sighted flapping across Highway 52. I found such a church next to a restaurant called the Wagon Wheel, the Wheel, with a churchyard on the other side and an address related to IM 49 Place. I won't be more specific. There was one little ramshackle house with words and signs all over it about colds and stars and the like. So you just walked up to the door? Yep. Walked up to this dude. I said, Mr. Cold, I presume? He smiled and said, my friends call me Indrid. So he says, I won't be more specific. I don't know how he could be more specific. He gives so much information. We could try to find it. And that's what I was trying to do. Because he gives all these clues. The biggest one being, he gives this tri-state intersection. Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. So I continued and I was like, look, we've got this restaurant called the Wagon Wheel.
at the tri-state area, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. Like, that should be Googleable. So I've been trying and trying.
Finally, after a little bit of work, I found an obituary for a Mary Hall, who had said she and her husband owned Hall's Wagon Wheel Restaurant.
Sorry about that, guys.
And then, fatedly enough, it provides the exact intersection in the town where they own the restaurant.
On
Ashland,
17th
Kentucky?
Street and Greenup Avenue in Ashland, Kentucky. This obit gives the exact cross street of where this old restaurant used to be, presuming it might be the one that's referenced. So I start looking around on Google Earth and going down this whole rabbit hole, and I find this intersection of Ashland, Kentucky, where this thing was supposed to be. Now, what's tough is it's not gentrified, but like it's pretty modern. You know, there's a Verizon store right down the street. And if this happened in the 80s, like we're starting to talk about like maybe 4 decades ago at this point, like 3 to 4 decades. So it's gonna look really different. Part of me wants to go down to Ashland and try to find some sort of historian or librarian or something that could try to help us figure out what that intersection was like in the 80s. And if there might have been a ramshackle house there.
Carl's research probably got me the most amped up because that's like tangible, real leads that we could follow. And no one has figured that out. No one has put that information together. And it felt like I'm ready to go. Like I wanted to be there. I wanted to go and like walk around the streets and like poke around and just look for anything.
Now, finishing touch.
It's an Aldi thing.
The minute we got into Ashland, we just started driving around. Carl had a pretty good idea of the intersection that this should have happened on. So we go to the intersection, we look around. It doesn't look like there's anything that could be the wagon wheel. Everything's closed. We noticed there's a police station. It seemed like it had always been sort of a city center, but it was obvious they had built things during that time period. So all these different things lined up. It seemed perfect. It felt right. We all had the vibe that like this is the place, and it felt like a nicer place than I expected it to. When we got there, it felt like a really nice place.
Highway 52 is the other side of the river right there.
We found a church next to a restaurant called the Wagon Wheel, with a churchyard on the other side.
The wagon wheel was 17th Street and Greenup.
Is this a thing? So I think it's that next intersection down there.
Walk down there.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I thought was really interesting is going from their discussion. We are one, thy wife, letter, words and signs, ink and black, all house of God, the wheel, I am 49 place, and as you noted, cross 52 I flap. Most all of those they explain how those apply. There's one or two that don't, and one of the ones that don't is letter. And right like half a block down the street from this intersection is the old U.S. Post Office of Ashland, Kentucky. And it's a really old stone building that has clearly been there for like 70 years. That would have been there in the 80s for sure. And so that's one of the things that isn't discussed in this is how letter fits into him finding it from cold. It's an old post office right there. That could be another indicator of this being the right intersection.
I don't know if we're gonna find too much out until we start asking people.
Yeah.
But I think you nailed the place. It feels right. It feels right. Like it feels really promising. What do you think, Dan?
It feels weird. It has a vibe, sure.
What kind of vibe?
Like a Shangri-La. That kind of feeling.
Ooh, Shangri-La there.
Like you found
Like it.
I'll spend the night in the killer's bed. Gonna spend some time in ahead. Well, I'm here to talk to the dead. I'll spend the night. I'll spend.
And I read through this a few times again last night, and I'm still impressed. I'm convinced that if there is a place where Terry Riss won, and where he met Ingrid Cole, that we're here. It's honestly a very specific set of points for that time period.
I think we go down, probably park right where we parked last night, looking around over by the old post office, and literally just start walking into places.
If you're cold, or Greenfield was here just shooting this, and or Terry Riss was here. Find it. Who knows where that'll lead, but.
Just can't explain. Spend the night.
So the next day, we get up and we just start asking around. The police station was closed, so we couldn't get in there. Fortunately, there was a policeman who was stopping to go in, and he was super friendly. I approached him. I just kind of asked him some questions. He didn't know where the wagon wheel was, and then he stopped and he goes, "But I will tell you this. I don't like talking bad about Ashland, but we have an incredibly high rate of mentally ill people." I asked him, what, do you guys get weird reports quite often, things like that? And he's like, no, I know other towns around the vicinity, they get them, like UFO reports and stuff like that, but we don't get much of that stuff. He said that I will tell you there is one really weird thing about Ashland. The mental health is out of control in Ashland to a strange degree. But he said he doesn't know of any weird stuff. Again, Hellier vibes, again. Don't know of any strange sightings or anything like that. Mental health is an issue. Let's go to the library. It'll be open within 4 minutes of us getting there. And we can start digging.
That's kind of the thing that I learned about Ashland was that it's got this really weird vibe to it. It's got these strange old ancient burial mounds right in the city central park. Back in the 30s, the University of Kentucky concluded that there was more evidence of prehistoric occupation in Ashland than any other city in all of Kentucky. Charles Manson even spent a few years here as a little kid after being born in Cincinnati. It's got this kind of weird vibe to it.
The newspaper was closed. The police office was closed, which left us with the library.
Well, shit,
Dana
old Chucky lived
Tyler
there.
were pouring through old photos that were arranged by
That
streets.
place has got to be
They told us
interesting.
where to find the different records for the different businesses by year. So we just started pulling out different years. Connor and I sat at the end of the table and looked through different business records for that intersection, trying to find any mention of the name Wagon. looking over our shoulder, Carl goes, "Here it is. It's the wagon wheel."
Oh, I got it. Paul's wagon wheel restaurant.
You found it?
It's in 74.
That's not here in 79. Paul's wagon wheel was there the next year. This was the last year it was there, 78.
So we have verification that it was there in 78.
Looks like
really
78.
close to our timeline.
Yep. Because it's not there in 70 and 79.
Exact address.
We have the exact address.
123.
123.
123, my numbers.
Carl's number.
On that moment when we actually Carl found it, it was awesome. It was that moment where you're like, holy crap, this is like all actually happening. This is a real, we're really, we keep saying it, but like we were in the shit then. Like it was that moment when we were 100% investigating. We were 100% kind of boots on the ground. And I love that kind of stuff.
We know exactly where that was. We can go stand outside of it. Why don't we put these back and just go out and see it and just take a spin? So we knew in a 4-year period of time, the wagon wheel existed right there. We had the exact address and we could go there. And we did.
They took a walk. You know what I mean? They took a walk.
So we are going right. Yeah. So it has to be. I'm telling you what. It's probably that little red building we were looking at before.
Oh.
It makes you wonder if maybe there was another building
On the other side. 1, 2, 3 seconds.
It has to be over there. Whoa, you know what?
There's a church down there.
That little red building back has a door facing this way.
Joking, I said, I don't want to see that building.
1:30.
What's the address there? Do you see? It might not be. It might not exist anymore.
Yeah, but touch it and catch it with the GPS and see where it would.
101.
It doesn't exist anymore.
It was here. Here? Which means if there was a house next to it, they would have torn the house down too.
And with the help of a few Ashland locals she talked to online, my sister Micheal was able to get a hold of a picture of the wagon wheel that sure enough confirmed its location right next to the flood wall. She was also sent some pictures of aerial sand-borne maps, and then right next to it are some small Ds that indicate the possibility of dwellings. Now those maps were seen in the 50s, but in the 60s the dwellings aren't marked there. So it's possible that they're not there anymore and weren't there at the time. The location of this house remains a mystery.
So this parking lot is where it would have been, right?
Here.
That pavement. I mean, this is it right here.
This is absolutely where the wagon wheel was. For a fact.
One of the biggest implications is the fact that the wagon wheel existed there and that this hit every checkbox. It was the place. Was that it lended credibility to the idea that Terry Rist, whoever he was real. Someone was there because they knew all the details. Terry Rist is a person. He exists. Who that person is anyone's guess at this point. We have ideas, but he was there. He's a real person.
You would look in one direction and there's something that he said was going to be there. There's the restaurant. Here's where Indrid potentially was. All of those things lined up.
And not only did that lend credibility to the idea that Terry Wrist was not just something someone was making up, it led credibility to the cipher.
There was just a few clues that weren't quite fitting. We couldn't find record of a churchyard, the cemetery beside a church, right? We couldn't find record of that, and that kind of bugged me. But it wasn't until we left that I started thinking about it all. I realized we've got all these things that match. This is an area right on the tri-state border, as they mentioned. They saw Mothman in Ashland. The wheel could well be the Wagon Wheel restaurant, which was right there. There's churches all over that area, so All House of God definitely seems to fit. We took kind of the lead with Letter, being the old U.S. Post Office that's been right there for like 100 years. But if we want to go further, some of the other ones we have is of the Law. The Ashland City building is right there on the corner of the same intersection. But if we want to take a couple of kind of extrapolations here, we don't want to go too crazy, but perhaps Words and Signs, which is a kind of a classic Masonic phrase, maybe that actually refers to the Masonic Lodge a couple of blocks away. And then the Dead might actually not be a graveyard. It could be referring to the famous Indian burial mounds that are in the city park in Ashland. What this tells us was that all of these clues added up to 112. All these clues were pulled from the Book of the Law, as Greenfield says was how you should use the cipher. And they almost all pointed towards this area specifically. The amount of effort alone just to make up a story like this is significant.
Right.
That is what I find most compelling.
Oh, no! Unbelievable. It keeps popping up over and over again.
Parsons.
We found photographs in the archives of it. I checked it out, but we still haven't seen it.
We look down and Parsons. But we continue to see the name Parsons all over the place. Parsons pop up in Darren Berner's book. It was the name of the police chief back in the day in Point Pleasant. It felt significant. It was a weird synchronicity.
So we're not just, and I don't know if this makes you feel unsettled or validated, but we're not just checking the validity of Indrid Cole. We're checking the validity of Terry Wrist. And the details check out.
He's someone.
Someone wrote that he was someone.
He's someone.
There was an eerie point in time when we were walking down this linear path, hitting all these pinpoint locations that Wrist seems to have detailed in his interview. And I had the sudden realization that we were literally walking in the footsteps of Terry Wrist. And it was a chilling thought because it made me think, how much further are those footsteps going to lead?
Aside from finding somebody who can literally show us where the house was, the only other good thing we could get is Terry himself saying, oh yeah, Ashland was the place.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that was our first episode
Yeah.
of the night. All right. And, yeah, let's not let it be our last. Let's do episode 3. All right. So, what they were doing was they're trying to decode how to find access. Okay, so a lot of people just give up at the stage they're at. They'll just be like, they'll get that where they'll get to that far, and then they'll be like, I can't get the code, I can't crack the code. You know, so that's where they're at. They're trying to crack the code. They don't even know it.
Right.
It's a big code to crack.
You know, I was not expecting all this.
It was a good.
I was not expecting it.
It was a different readout. Because I know this last episode did not make a lick of sense leading up from goblins in Kentucky. You know what I mean? That was it.
Right.
And for me, this is where I started to go, okay, what's going on? This is where I started to pay a little bit closer attention. Is after that episode right there. Like, okay, first I was watching, and I was just like, I was listening to everything and stuff, and I was just going through the motions of checking out this show, and then I got to that last episode, and I was like, well, whoa, what are they tracking down? How come they're looking up this dude? And I went, and while I'm watching this show, I'm like looking up who these people are and stuff, and looking up these names and stuff. And yeah, like this injured cold dude, like no joke kind of a dude, like it's legit in quite a bit of UFO stories and stuff. I was a bit baffled by that. I was like, okay. And then another person dubbed him, they said last time, they only made one mention of it, but they called him the Grinning Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grinning Man.
Yeah. So they only made one mention of it, but that's a big thing, like apparently in certain places, like they'll say this dude like would show up and he'd be helpful, would be nice, but he'd be real creepy. And then you'd look at his face, and he would have this distorted smile that was unnatural. They said it wasn't human. So that's who Injured Cold is. They have he has a couple other code names. Thor of Asgard is one, I believe. And he has a couple more. Yeah, he has a couple more names, but the government has referred to him as Thor before. Like the American government knows him as Thor.
I'm not really sure what it is about the Mothman prophecies that draws me to it.
And he has 7 fingers.
I really like the way that Keel thought about the phenomenon.
There's one.
It's more in line with the way
one of my researchers delved and dug up. Once you start looking into Thor and stuff, he was like one of those. They called them piano men. And when you had extra fingers and stuff, they would call them piano men.
They're long.
Yep.
Strangeness that slips through once in a while. And we see that as ghosts or monsters or UFOs, but it's all coming from the same place. I really like that.
My grandma, who's Native American elder, she used to tell me about these like people.
It's one of the first things that Dane and I wanted to go see.
She told me they're real. She'd met one. She was friends with one.
We drove
she
out.
didn't tell me his name.
Tested it.
But she told me like she like gave me that look like those people are real. You know, there's really people.
And ever since then, it's felt like every big change in our life, we go there.
My grandma was a cool lady.
I've never seen the Mothman.
She wasn't like trying to tell me a story to scare me or anything. She was like telling me like, this is real, this is something I saw, type of thing. Like I was like a little bit disbelief at first myself.
I think it's just
somebody with 6 fingers, 7 fingers.
Pleasant in general,
you know,
has become
it's real.
Like a representation of change.
This is so okay. I'm almost done with this kit.
All right, guys, it's 10 after 1. I'm going to bail off here because I've got responsibilities to keep. It's been real.
Right, brother.
I'm going to have to catch up with this one.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All
you
right,
can always watch us later. We'll talk to you
Good luck
later.
tomorrow.
Have a good time with your kid. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you on Monday. All right, brother?
All right, man. I got you. Love you guys. Merry Christmas.
All right.
You too, man.
All right. Oh, fudge. Commercials. No commercials. Oh, we have to watch the commercials.
Only pay for what you need.
Well, the Gundam is done.
Nice.
Because we continue to find connections to the Mothman case, because there were connections to Keel, and because we were in the vicinity with Tanya, it just made sense that we go to Point Pleasant. It seemed like Point Pleasant was such an impactful place to be. It was a hub of some of the craziest visitation experiences that had ever happened. It just made sense to go there.
Indrid Cold was an unexpected development in the Hellier case. We're not sure if it was a random one-off coincidence or if it was actually connected to this phenomenon as a whole in general. And we kind of understand the fact that the Mothman case is kind of tangential to the Hellier case. It might be part of the same, but we're not sure. But it kept coming up. It seemed significant in season 1. They were dangling threads that the larger phenomena could have been connected with as a whole. And we wanted to make sure that it was thoroughly followed up on. So having the chance to talk to Tanya, having the chance to explore Ashland and follow up on the Terry Riss story, Point Pleasant is the heart of those two places. It's right there in that same area. We wanted to go to the heart of that phenomenon from 1966 and 1967 and try to communicate with that and figure out if it was the same phenomena that we've been dealing with from the start.
I mean, I think we literally have a piece of equipment that's designed to enhance latent psychic abilities. That's something that I think we could use. We could use the God helmet. We could use it while doing an Estes method session. It's literally never been done. Never.
The other things we do too is you could have me doing the God helmet and someone else doing the Estes method at the same time.
Yeah. Well, then why don't you be the receiver?
That's fine.
Yeah. And you be the sender.
Well, then what you have to do is you have to tell me what I need to be sending out.
Perfect. I love it. So we whisper into Dana's ears and we wait for your answers. Perfect. Or whoever's.
And you're right. We need to take something to enhance our possible abilities because we're not going to be able to just sit in the field and be like, don't get the message. So we need to give enhancers.
Well, the dome is built in the shape of something that, like, the domes themselves are, like...
Appreciate that.
Like, so the session that I would do is 30 minutes.
I mean, that's literally the session.
It's just 30 minutes. That's it. And it runs... Yeah, it just runs for 30 minutes and then it's done. So we wouldn't be in there for, 1 hour or anything like that. So that at least limits the amount of time that we're spending in the domes. If that was a concern.
How do you feel about this?
I still feel uncomfortable about what I experienced like a year ago, when they shot an image into my mind. Just like the one that I saw. I just saw like a tin can stuffed into my mind with an old tin can, no label. That's a legitimate thing, not just for this like filming or but that like freaked me out. Yeah. And now we're actually going out there specifically asking them to send a message.
Well, we have sent in the last 2-3 days. We have sent emails to Terry Rist. We have sent emails to David. We've sent Greenfield. We just spent an hour and a half with Tanya. The best link we could find to Indrid Cold and that whole crew. And now we're in Point Pleasant. And we're going to put a God helmet on and we're going to do an Estes method session. What else can we do? The Estes method session we've done in Hellier on the porch was such a big deal. Like, we'd gotten such interesting information, and even information that seems more interesting the further away we get from the event. Things that are still relevant. so much came out of that, and it seemed like such a special session. We had someone's attention. We wanted to know how we could do that again to maybe get an idea of what the next step now was. So we thought, let's see if we can amplify the response that we got from the original session by using some new equipment that's designed to do just that. The domes are the place in Point Pleasant where it all started. So it feels like a very good spot to do an experiment like that. It's funny. I almost feel as if when you're in Point Pleasant, it was as if Mothman was visiting Point Pleasant, but the TNT area and the domes feel as if it's his space. Like that's where he was. That was his. He wasn't in town. He could kind of hide out there. So I still kind of feel that energy there, and I feel as if that's where it's really concentrated for the most part, and it's still consistently concentrated. I don't know if that has anything to do with the shape of the domes themselves, like containing energy, or if it's something about the land possibly, but the domes feel like the starting point, and they always feel like the ending point too. So I always like to kind of bring it back to the TNT area.
Oh shit, dude.
It's too bad they get it down. Could have had it.
The God helmet is a device, and it's a tool that we can use, and it essentially helps us trigger similar feelings that people have when they have religious experiences, psychic experiences, and paranormal experiences. So the God helmet is actually working to get your brain to respond the same way that we will respond to in those types of situations. Sort of a cheat code in a way. It forces the brain to respond that way.
I'm going to do this as quick as I can.
The Corin helmet is a piece of equipment that was developed by Dr. Michael Persinger and Stan Corin from Laurentian University in order to study religious experiences. This was something they've been using since at least the 80s. The way that it works is it takes complex magnetic fields and it pumps them through different hemispheres of the brain in order to to stimulate a religious experience. The media has dubbed this thing the God helmet because it's given so many people visions of God. In a lot of places that are considered holy places, they have higher, stranger electromagnetic fields, and they just figured maybe there's something about these areas that's causing these experiences. And so they created a device that simulates those. It's also been used in lots of psychic experiments, which is something they didn't necessarily anticipate when they were building this thing. They've used it with tons of psychic experiments, with remote viewing experiments, with people like Ingo Swann, and they found that when they have the coils arranged in a specific way, they could actually enhance someone's latent psychic abilities to the point where their hits are crazy above where they would normally be.
I've worn the God helmet probably at this point maybe 10 times, so I'm pretty I'm pretty comfortable with it, and I know what to expect. 10 days after, the 10 days that follow wearing the God helmet, I tend to be a bit spacey and kind of needing to be alone and meditate and spend time in thought. So I wasn't particularly excited about spending the next 10 days being a space cadet, but I also know that, I'm most familiar with it, so I would put anybody else through it. If they've never done it before, it can be pretty overwhelming.
Whoops.
So the helmet that Greg and Dana brought out to use is actually the only official non-laboratory model. It was developed by a guy named Todd Murphy with Dr. Persinger's help and his old research files.
It's not an unpleasant feeling, but it's definitely nothing. It's not like my waking state, where in my waking state I observe reality the way that I do. When I do a God helmet session, it's very different. It feels very different. You kind of feel very removed from everything that's happening around you, and a lot of what you're experiencing is sort of happening. It's strange. It sounds strange, but it's all kind of happening up here. So it's definitely a physical. You physically feel it, and you kind of emotionally feel it.
I don't know about all that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Think about Connor and Conrad. Think about Indrid Cold's family. Think about anyone that might have been part of his mission. That's who we want to make contact with.
There's a gate.
Where is the gate?
Young. Easy.
Easy.
I see a rose.
You see a moose?
A rose.
A rose. Indrid.
No.
What can you tell us about Indrid?
talk to me.
This is a little new. We haven't tried this before. Who are we talking to? We're trying to make contact with Indrid Cold, his family. We heard there was an accident. We're looking for information.
She called him. The car.
Where are you?
Hearing beeps.
I see headlights again.
It was like 7 or 8 beeps in a row.
Are you sending Morse code? Sounds like Morse code.
No.
Oh, it's not Morse code. Where are you?
It's the strangest thing.
I see a face.
Look at it.
It's not human.
He's talking about a head and ears, while she's talking about seeing a face.
It's like it's long.
Pizza man.
It's long. It's not human.
Hair 3. Clops.
Hair 3 clops.
3.
Press. 3. On the deck. Hi, female voice. They were playing Ouija.
They were playing Ouija.
3 of Wands is the card of journey.
That's another joke. I'm gonna set this card down because it sounds like it's important.
Name
Hee-haw.
I feel like somebody's trying to, like, I feel plugged into something.
Are you doing that?
Yes.
George, I think that maybe you should ask him a question.
Can you hear me?
Speak.
My name is Dana.
There was a point when it felt like we weren't getting anywhere. We weren't getting much of anything. And so I said, Dana, why don't you ask the questions? And the minute that we did that, it was like a switch went off. Everything became pointed. It was like they were having a conversation.
Calm down. Here.
Can you give us a message? Can you speak to us in the English language?
Try.
I know you're trying.
The database.
It's a database, isn't it? The code. Absorbing information.
Yeah.
Information.
Connor said database at one point, and that word was what made me realize what they were trying to explain to me was that there's a database of human English words or potentially other languages that they were trying to use to communicate with us, but the word meant more than just the word. And it was their way of sort of saying the way that we communicate with each other as people, there's a lot in there that doesn't need to be in there. And that each one of these words were sort of this condensed, concentrated thing that was really about communicating emotionally rather than verbally or through language. Can I do better?
That's it.
We're talking to each other right now. I will do better.
Cold.
What should I call you, Loop?
There's ground. Do it orange.
With warmth? Warmth.
10-4.
Connor and I began to communicate that way using this database of words, and each one of these words meant 1,000 times more than just the word itself. There were emotions and colors and all sorts of expressive like symbols that were attached to them. You're speaking in colors.
You seem pale.
I like your language.
Who's quoting this?
Dana.
What?
That's my name.
Just a second. You confused me.
Are you on this planet? Are you on Earth?
I'm in the city.
You're in the city.
It's truth talking about.
Where is Indrid?
Circle.
Can we go there?
This is a small time. Low.
You liked families.
Talking is good. 4.
Can you tell us where to go next? Where do we go next?
Schoolyard. Autumn Falls listening.
Autumn Falls.
Told ya.
Can you give us a city?
Out of state.
Out of state.
Horse. Who?
Horse.
Talking. Voice. Talking about small.
Should we
Mexican
talk?
state.
Session's over. Session's over. She's done.
Thank you.
A shiver. The
Thank you.
plant.
Pull him out, Greg.
Ask a really direct question, Dana.
Are you gone?
Boots. Wait.
Will we talk with you again?
this has been done.
It's good.
Are you ready?
We'll try harder.
I'm gonna pull him out. You're done, Dana.
Yeah, no.
Now bring it back again.
Bye.
Thank
Get
you.
through. I feel like everything's a lot more faint now.
Yeah. They're gone. They're gone.
He said, I feel like everything's a lot more faint now.
They're all gone. They're gone.
While I'm in the Estes method, suddenly something happens that I wasn't used to, that I found unusual, in that the words and the signal and even the noise that I was hearing through the headphones just suddenly like notched down in volume.
Which was crazy because there's no way Connor would have known. There's no way. I was even off because I said like, oh yeah, it's like a 30-minute session. It wasn't. It lasted even longer than that. So there's no way he would have known it was over. He just said, I'm not getting anything anymore.
Almost as if the megaphone, the amplifier, that signal that we were boosting out through the domes to these beings, to this phenomena, when her time session ended.
Once that connection was severed, we were done.
What do you think happened?
I think you turned into an antenna, is what I think.
I just had a full-on conversation with an alien. But here's the thing. They don't talk like we do. They talk with emotion. They translate emotion into words. And that's why it's hard to understand what they're saying. They use pictures. They use colors. I wasn't understanding it here. I was understanding the symbols emotionally, and then I would say something to you, and you'd be like, you said 10-4? Like, I figured, like...
Her session ended, and we let her keep asking questions. And what was so funny is, like, 2-3 minutes after the session ended, you said something like, I felt like everything just got murky.
It did. I sat there.
I couldn't feel them anymore. That's what I remember.
The whole antenna and the words just
drifted
I
away.
was really stretching me through anything. Because that's awesome.
I felt like it just, my feelings stopped.
We sat and watched a conversation unfold between two people. A person and something else. It was really striking, but I think the domes themselves added to this strange ambience where everything just seemed ethereal in a lot of ways. I felt like we were in someplace else. As we're compiling this research and this information over the last year, there's a trend I started to notice of bridges and borders. I know in the East Coast that there's a lot of state boundaries that are defined by rivers. And of course, back in the old days, at the time, rivers, of course, are a big mode of transportation. So if you're going to have a city center, it's going to be on a river so that you can trade and travel very easily. But there's this strange trend, especially these days, when there's cities and towns all over the place now, throughout the state. They don't hang out only along these river borders anymore. And we keep seeing this consistently. Bridges and borders. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, is a border town with a bridge. Stillwater, Minnesota, Stillwater Bridge. It's a border town along a river. Ashland, it's a border town with a river and a bridge. There's these consistencies that keep popping up. And even Tyler Strand points out that there's some symbolism there, that a bridge is going from one place to another. It's a transition type of place. It's a place where you're entering something new. And he's pointed out a number of times as well that you get enough people
traveling over this one bottleneck spot, thinking about transitioning. There's the signs, welcome to this next state. It's transition, its thought is continuously being projected onto this space. Maybe it becomes a space of transition. Maybe it becomes almost a doorway or a window to another place.
That we're about to move into the next chapter. That's what it feels like. I really, truly feel as if this week has been the final 2 pages of the last chapter, and now we're about to move into the next one.
If there are 2 main locations that are connected with Terry Wrist, one of those was the location where he met Indrid Cole, Ashland, Kentucky. The other were the coordinates that he sent to Greg. Greg and Dana always associated those coordinates with where they were on Brown Mountain, that cave entrance. But when we plugged the coordinates in, they were actually at a spot a couple miles away. Seemingly middle of nowhere. Tyler Strand, when he had a couple of days off between his school semesters, he decided to go to those coordinates himself and see what was there, to finally go to the exact spot where those coordinates were. The night before he left on that journey, Greg got a new email that changed the framing of this entire case.
I mean, I've been waiting for this since we started putting the articles up, and nothing like this has come in.
Oh, and that's the end of the episode.
Well done.
Not much left.
Nope.
Only a few more hours. It gets better from here, but like I said, the target keeps changing.
Yeah, it does.
So right now we all look at it and we're thinking, oh hey, it could be aliens, UFOs. We started at cave goblins that resembled aliens and UFOs. Now we're circling back into UFOs and from like the occult and all that stuff. So now it's a very tangled web of what we're actually looking into here. Like this whole everything kind of moves out of it. This episode was bringing into retrospective and pulling together that they kept looking at the synchronicities as clues instead of signs to pay attention. So they have to now go back to where they were seeing all those synchronicities, and they have to go and look at and see what were the actual clues, because the synchronicities are not the clues, but they were treating them like they were the clues, and so that's where they're at. That's what this episode said was, we got to stop looking at the synchronicities as clues, but look at them as clues to the local area, what is going on. So, I don't really know any of the folklore in Stillwater, like Stillwater, Minnesota, because here I'm from Minnesota, right? But I don't really know any of the folklore from there. It's kind of one of those random things where folklore don't, it's not the same. So, that is it. That is our show for the night. Woohoo! Did such a great job, and that is us. Hey, WebC and Big Cloudwize here. Everybody, keep your subs together. I don't know. Have a good time. Thanks everybody for coming and hanging out. All the people that did come and hang out, you guys are awesome. It is the Late Nite L.O.A.D with WebC, the Model Rocketeer, and Big Cloudwize. Model Rocketeer took an early absence, but that's cool. He'll catch back up with us, and we will see him again. I'm thinking I'm not busy on Tuesday, so Tuesday we will be doing some stuff on Tuesday. We'll watch a couple more hours of this on Tuesday, and then start back up after the New Year's. Yeah, and I don't think we won't have a Wednesday show, guys, and until the New Year. And I think the Wednesday show, we're gonna move it into like a. I don't want to say we're going to move it away from what the original Wednesday show was, but I think it's going to be moving away from interactivity. Like, we're not going to gear that show around activity with viewers. I don't know. We'll see. For now, you guys have a great night. Those are just a couple little tidbits of drop cloth from Web C himself. So, that's it for me. You guys have a great Christmas, a great New Year's, and we will see you back here